I want to introduce our featured speaker today. I would say that our team has probably been stalking Hamilton. I don't know if he'd call it stalking. I'm sure that I would call it stalking for a year or more. I would see him out doing artwork, or I would see him at markets, and I would just be like, Hamilton, can we please have you speak? And he's just like, I don't have a lot to say. We're like, no, we're going to get you. So we would come and meet with him and come talk with him. And finally, it worked out for his schedule, and it worked out that he is joining us here today. So I'm so excited to give you a little bit more information and background in case you're not familiar with Hamilton Glass. He's a native to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he's based out of Richmond, Virginia. Growing up in Philly allowed Hamilton to experience different cultures and art. As a young child, his mother constantly enrolled him in art classes at the Philadelphia Institute of Art, where he gained a strong foundation that allowed him to tap into his creative side and begin his journey as an artist. After graduating from Archbishop Carroll High School, Hamilton started his college career at Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. After a semester in Atlanta, Hamilton realized that it was not for him and chose to move back north to Hampton, Virginia. At Hampton University, he got his bachelor's of architecture and went on to work with numerous architecture firms in Virginia and New Jersey. So anybody that knows his artwork, maybe some of those straight lines and angles had some basis in that architecture background. So Hamilton's career as an artist stems from architecture and design. Despite working in the architecture field for 7 years, his passion for public art pushed him to start a career as an artist. Public art has always been a big influence and inspiration of his because of its power to influence and inspire the surrounding community. With every project he's given to create, a message is being built that connects the work to the community in which it lives. Hamilton's work is usually distinguished by his use of architectural elements with bright, vivid colors and sharp lines. The colors and unpredictable lines are used to convey a certain energy and movement within each piece. So Hamilton, I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here and talking with y'all. I've also got to shout out Richmond. It's so amazing to see so many people who have supported you in this sea of people that have come to Creative Mornings this morning. It's just Richmond's such an amazing place. I couldn't do the things I do without a lot of the people that I see in here. So it's just great. I just have to say that, and it's just great. When I was asked to do this and talking about all of the times we talked about me talking in this, I really thought about how I'm just not a great speaker, and I feel like I'm always sharing my story and things like that, and then thinking about what today's kind of talk is about, radical. The first thing I thought about was radical. I'm nowhere near radical. I feel like I'm the furthest thing from radical. But really kind of then digging deep into the definition of radical, I started thinking about how radical can mean change, and radical can mean really kind of turning something around to be different. And that got me thinking about how I've, ended up here. I'm 39 years old. I'm a full-time artist. I've been so for almost 10 years. And, the start of my adult life, going into school and everything, there's no way in the world that I would think about I would be in the place that I'm in right now. But first of all, most people don't know this, but my first name is Maurice. My middle name is Hamilton, and I started using that once I decided, hey, I'm going to change my life around. I'm going to be something that I really want to do and, follow my own path. And so there are a lot of people in my life who um, who more so define that definition of radical to me, and they were a really big they were a really big representation of what radical was, and they were the reason why I feel like I could be who I wanted to be, and that representation. And I'm going to go back to that, but that representation was really, really important, and seems like it was a theme in my life going forward. And I'll speak about that later. But I have grandparents who I feel were truly radical. My grandmother graduated from Hampton, at that time Hampton Institute, now it's Hampton University, but in the first Black nursing class, and was one of the first Black nurses at McGuire Hospital. My grandfather, her husband, was one of the first Black developers in Chesterfield. And my grandfather moved with his family to Philadelphia and owned several like chain stores. Like, that's radical to me. But then I was remembering that, I was thinking how the first time in my life when I got to do what I wanted to do did kind of start off radical. I'm going to share my screen and kind of talk to you guys about my story. Give me 1 second. I'm here we go. So yeah, a lot of you all, I don't know if a lot of you all know my story here in Richmond, but like Jolie was saying, I moved here for good in 2007. I've never been a stranger to Richmond because Richmond is where my mother's from. So I was like that city kid who came here to visit my grandparents and things like that. But in 2000, and I worked here, when I moved here, I worked at Thomas Hamilton Associates, which was an architecture firm. And then the recession hit, and I kind of went into this mode of, all right, I don't love architecture, and I didn't know I could be let go for for something out of my control, right? It was I followed this architectural path with Hampton University and went into it because I thought there was no money in art, and when I went into architecture, I was kind of just following what I thought was right. I just followed. We all know that. You're like, well, I got a degree in it, so I'm just going to follow this path. And so I did that. And when I was in 2009 in recession, I was kind of let go. And in that year that I was let go, I created more art than I ever created in my whole life. And that was because I kind of was fed up with not doing what I loved. Like, I wanted to do what I loved and find a way to do it. And don't get me wrong, all while looking for another job in architecture. But I was thinking, hey, I've got to find another path. I've got to get radical. I've got to find another path towards a change. And so, while creating more art than I've ever created in my life, I ran into, and I also found the courage to show my work, which I think came from that being let go of architecture. We all know a friend, or maybe it's ourselves, who creates a lot of work in their basement or their room and says, and people always ask, why don't you show your work? And you go, what? And they go or say to you, it's not ready yet. It's not time to share that. You know what I mean? And that's the way I was. But because of the past events, I was just like, hey, I have nothing to lose. Let's just show this work. Let's just do this. And I started showing my work all over. And so when I did that, I just had a ton of opportunities. People were like, "Hey, I love your work. This right here is on Main Street. ALB Tech used to be a computer store on Main Street. Adam Bell was the shop owner there, and Adam let me show in his place one time, and then immediately after that said, "Hey, I love your work. Can you do a mural in front of my place?" And I did that mural and fell in love with the process. Like, fell in love with it. I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever." And so he loved it so much, he let me do something in the back. And he said, "You could do whatever you want." And what you see on the screen here right now is what I did. It was a politician holding a gun to his head. Not nowhere near the stuff you see me do now, but I was like expressing myself. Like I was trying to create something. Well, I was creating something. It was like therapy. Yeah, I was creating something that showed how I felt at that moment. And to be honest with you, I never thought that people would be consuming this. And I know it's like almost 2 stories high. Why would people not consume it? But I wasn't in that mind frame. I also didn't think I was going to be a public artist. I just got up there and did it. And he loved it. And for that time, this piece was very radical. There was 2009, believe it or not, there were pretty much no murals in Richmond. It was it was very radical for that time. And so we had some of the neighbors approach Adam, who really did not like it. And they approached them saying they didn't like it and saying, "Hey, you need to take this down." They started threatening and say, "Hey, you need to take this down. We don't like this." Instead of kind of like coming and talking to us about it, trying to figure out what it meant and things like that. And so we found out that it did not need to be taken down at all. But it was the first time I was reckoned with that thought of, hey, what you put up in the public space, people are going to consume, right? There's some responsibility about that. There's some, there's some notion that you have to talk to the community. You have to this. And I started thinking about Philadelphia, where I grew up, where there's murals all over the place that look like me. And it was the first time I kind of really thought about the responsibility of people consuming my art. And so in my dealings with this situation that I have now going on, I really started thinking about the way they approached this and decided to change it. And I changed it to the image that you see on your right, which is changed it over to a censorship mural. And that was, again, the power of art. That really talked about how and why we were approached about this. And that really kind of like fueled me. It really like was like, hey, I can do this. I can say something with my art beyond it just being this aesthetically pleasing piece. And so that was the first time that I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I might want to be a public artist. I don't go as far as to say, hey, I'm going to be a public artist, but it was, like I mentioned before, I love the process. People were listening to me, and I got to do something that I really enjoy. And so that gave me, that opened my eyes to the art community in Richmond. And the first thing I did, as now being interested in just being an artist in general, was go run to small art organizations, Art 180 being the first, to be honest. And when I ran to Art 180, and I always tell artists that want to, be public artists or just in general do more with their art, you've got to get out of your studio. You can't sit in your studio because there are a lot of things happening out there. There are a lot of people who are doing the same things you need to do, and collaboration is key. And so in running to Art 180, I really kind of, again, got used to, introduced to the art community in Art 180, but then also fell in love with how the kids at Art 180, the kids were Art 180 were really learning from and benefiting from the power of art and the power of creativity. And so, in working with Art 180 for a couple of years, especially those few first years, I ran into another radical project which doesn't seem like one, but I'll explain. So we did a project called "What Do You Stand For?" And it was myself and 6 other artists who led, I believe, around 60 other kids in 2011 to do portraits on 4x8 panels that talked about what they stood for. They could do a portrait, they could do things that they like, really anything that represented that. And then on the back, they would write an artist statement that talked about what they stood for. And so this was a traveling exhibit that for the year 2011 traveled all over Richmond. And so its final place was Monument Avenue, which then had someone who did not, or a group of people who did not believe that these were aesthetically pleasing on Monument Avenue. And once that happened, there was a whole community that then rallied behind that and said, hey, though, these belong here, and gave it even more attention. Gave it even more attention, and the pieces were able to stay, and people were able to enjoy them. And that, again, called into question of kind of public space and who owns public space and consuming art and things like that. And so that was another kind of reckoning with inside me that was like, this art thing, this power of art thing is just amazing. This public realm of art, being able to talk to your community and let your community speak through your art is really powerful. And it was at this moment that I was saying, you know what? I want to be a public artist. This is what I want to do. I think this is around the time that my daughter was born. So I had went back into work to architecture for a minute, but I was doing architect. I was architect by day, public artist by night, if that makes any sense. And but I really fell in love and knew that this is what I wanted to do full time. And so I was afforded a lot of great opportunities and started working with a lot of the larger corporations, lot of the larger corporations here in Richmond. And I think my mindset, knowing, there was a power of public art, there also was a lot of, I think public art at this time, just in America in general, graffiti and street art really had started to explode. So there were festivals everywhere, especially in Richmond. Art Wino came here and started the Richmond Mural Project. At the same time, Ed Trask started the Street Art Festival. So there were a lot of things. And I think my perception was, hey, I'm going to be traveling and doing art and things like this. And I'm going to make a lot of cool stuff, but then also get to work with the community. And then in 2013, there was a project called The Light of Human Kindness. And this project just changed my whole perception. It was, it pointed me in the right direction. This project was led and created by Patience Salgado. I know some of you all know who she is. And she's a kindness worker. She's many things, but she's, for the sake of this, I'll use her one of her titles, which is a kindness worker. And she does a lot of work that inspires kind acts. And she approached me about doing a project to inspire 1,000 kind acts. But she didn't want it to just live in Richmond. She wanted it to reach all over the world. And so we partnered with the Martin Agency, and they created this mural that had 1,000 LED lights, also, and had conductive paint on it. And these lights were connected to an app on your phone. This was 2013. It was an app on your phone, and you could insert your kind act that you did, and it would light in real time one of those lights on the wall. And then we also used conductive paint, so there were different hot spots on the wall, and so you could go there, hold hands with other people, and create a chain and once you like connected the loop, one person was holding one, and you hold hands with people on the other side. The lights would do some like animation, so you can kind of see in this photo people holding hands in it. And the reason that this changed my whole perspective and it really gave me a clear path is because in doing this, the stories that you see on the wall were collected through Tumblr, and they were stories of light and dark from the actual community. They were from Richmond, and in painting this, the community, of course, helped with the stories on the wall. But in painting this, I spoke to so many impactful people who came just to read the stories and knew and identified with those stories. And the stories were anonymous, so they weren't, they were people's stories, but we didn't know who they were. But it made me realize, again, talking about that power of art, it made me realize how healing it was for this community and how people, felt like they belonged there. And it was, one of the first murals that I did that people weren't just coming for the art, if that makes any sense. And so that was amazing. And so that really started my trajectory of, hey, I feel like I can bring something special to art and to Richmond through, just through working with kids and working in schools and using that power of art to be impactful. And so one of the big reasons why I went into architecture was because I didn't have any representation of another artist who was successful, much less another Black artist who was successful, who was doing it. And so being afforded the opportunity to go in schools and create murals, it was very apparent to me that, wait a minute, I'm doing what I didn't have. And I have to be that representation. Like, I have to be that representation to show that you can kind of do whatever you want to do and really be whoever you want to be and be that representation that I didn't have. And so there are a lot of things that I do. Of course, if you are familiar with my work, you'll notice that a lot of it involves that community engagement, because it's just very important to me. I think it really not only does it involve the community, but there are a lot of kids and just people in general involved that that look at me and say, hey, this guy can do it, I can do it. And that really fuels me, and it really is honestly the sole reason that I do so much work like that. A lot of my work also, I think a lot of people think that, being an artist, you just sit back and wait and think someone's going to call me or someone's going to email me to do this project. A lot of my work is self-proposed. So when I see a need, I try to fill that need. And so this particular project is in Battery Park, and it was the park has a tunnel that was in disrepair and is always locked. But it also is a bridge between, well, underpass between the tennis side and the basketball side. And so Battery Park being the neighborhood where Arthur Ashe was so prevalent in, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to do a tunnel that was connected to him, that also had facts and told about his life and celebrated him. And so so we did that, and we partnered with we partnered with Parks and Rec to make that happen. So a lot of my work is doing that. I use the power of art to also highlight other smaller nonprofits and organizations. I work with Girls for a Change a lot. I mean, I have 2 young girls, so I'm very invested in that. And so we did this on First and Broad Street, and I heard one of the girls talking to the Office of I'm blanking. I heard one of the girls giving a speech about how they wanted to be represented here in Richmond, and I immediately called Angela and said, "Hey, I love that talk, but I heard this one thing that I think that I can help with." And she immediately said, "Okay, well, join the action team. You can start one this year here." And so I work with them, and it's about 10 girls, and they designed and helped paint this mural that's in downtown Richmond. And in doing that, I brought in another a Black female artist by the name of Austin Miles to partner with me, because I felt like, hey, I'm a male, so getting in front of 10 girls and telling them how to do this might not be the best thing. Like they've got to feel connected to this. That's the other thing, like being able to work with so many artists here in Richmond and help them get started in being public artists or artists in general has been a real pleasure of mine. Hold on. And so it's 140 feet long. That's the kind of the end of, that's the final product of that. But my murals are all over the place in Richmond. One of the things that I want you, when you do walk past one of my murals, is kind of think about what the connotation of them is, because there always is one. There always is something that I'm trying to highlight. This is Legacy Academy, which is run by Richmond Cycle Corp. And one of the things about Richmond Cycle Corp that I wanted to highlight was, of course, they do cycling, and they started their program at Armstrong. But usually when I hear Richmond Cycle Corp, I never heard how much Craig has to deal with, and Craig is the director there, had to deal with, and how influential they are in those young men's lives. And so I approached him and was like, "Hey, I want to do a mural for you guys, but I don't want it to have anything to do with cycles." And Craig sat down with me and said, "Hey, I love it. Let's do it." And so highlighting his work and their work and what they're doing for those young men there was super important to me. The same thing with MLK, working with MLK and Parks and Rec in the bridge over there, to highlight the Martin Luther King Bridge, and to get students involved in that was another great project. So I can kind of go on and on, but I guess I can kind of open it up to questions. But really, what I wanted to the statement I wanted to kind of lean you all with is that representation and that drive and that the power of art is really what is the utmost important to me. And I think honestly that can kind of be considered radical. It is what drives me. I think my radicalness comes in change. It's always in highlighting, what's needed in the community.
Hamilton, you have a question in chat. Allison wanted you to talk a little bit about mending walls.
Oh yeah. How could I forget? I'm sorry. I was trying to keep on time. So Mending Walls is another great project. That that I started this year in partnership with Community Foundation. As I said earlier, see a need, try to address a need. That's honestly what I was trying to do with Mending Walls. I had when George Floyd when George Floyd was murdered, I really was kind of going through a really hard time. And I was talking to a frequent collaborator, Matt Lively, because we were working on another project all in together. And he was asking me, hey, how are you doing right now? Like, I'm sure a lot of people were, talking to each other about. And I told him I wasn't doing well at all. And it was because I didn't understand why the country was just waking up to this. As a Black man, honestly, it was a normal day, right? I mean, it's never a normal day when someone is killed, but that threat is not new. And I didn't understand why people were just waking up to that. And Matt being, from a different background than me, and listening to me and my talk about that, kind of had the patience and explained to me why it was new. And he explained to me why he felt like people were waking up. He also just was very candid about even his thoughts on it and why it was different to him. And how after seeing that video, he immediately felt bad for not believing, the others, or not believing them, but having doubt about the others. And I guess because of my experience, because of who I am, I knew not to doubt them. I've seen my friends in positions like that. And so after that phone call, I felt like this is that empathetic moment that we all need to be having right now. This is what starts those hard conversations. And so I immediately started thinking about ways to amplify that conversation. And things really just kind of came together. I reached out to Community Foundation, and I also started thinking about, all of the tags that were on the walls and how they would just be power washed over, and knowing that those are unheard voices, right? So we've got to find a way to keep that conversation going. And Richmond being, a huge public art city now, I thought, what better way than to use the artists as the catalyst to have those tough conversations, to inspire more conversations through empathy and connection. And so I can talk about Mending Walls for a long time, but that's really the basis of Mending Walls. And really going back to me loving Richmond and my connection with a lot of great people in the corporations. Community Foundation, when I brought the idea to Community Foundation, they were all about it, and they were very receptive to the way that I wanted it run, and they just really just gave me a whole lot of support, and that's how Mending Walls worked.
That's awesome. Todd Waldo, you have a question.
I do. Pam, I'm a fan. I see your art every day in my house. In particular, it's the piece that I Am a Man, which is powerful for me to see every day. I wonder, because your art is so public, you and I talked about this a little bit, you decided to create other pieces that are not in public, they're in people's homes.
Right.
And if you're not following Ham, he's doing an auction right now, so make sure you follow Ham on Instagram so you can get some of his art.
Love it.
Thank
you.
But what is that like to shift from being a public artist to being one that creates pieces that sit inside people's homes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd. So I'm working on that right now. I have always, I've always created canvas work. I just focused on public art because I was in love with that process, like I was saying before. But in working on that right now, I guess what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to master is coming up with a process that actually speaks to that transition. You know what I mean? And I think, especially because I have such a large body of work on the the mural side, the public side, I think trying to transition, I think most people usually do it the other way around, right? They go from small to big, but I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm trying to find ways to bring my public work to inside, and it's going well. What's funny is the I Am a Man series was created 2016 when I did a show over at Richmond Times Dispatch, and I was talking about it was the same reason. I think I can't remember who passed, but there was I saw another Black man die, and I just thought to myself, we're no further. We are no further. And it's funny because when I had that conversation with Matt Lively, he told me, I was just thinking like, okay, well, if they're instead of being upset, let's show this work again. Let's show this work to show that, we are no further, that we're not going further. And hopefully people will be a little bit more receptive, because there are people who are kind of being more receptive to change right now. And how I describe it, opening their eyes for the first time. So it's no different, Todd. I'm just trying to translate what I'm doing publicly, but I'm also in experimentation mode. So I'm trying to figure that out at this moment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ham. It was awesome to see your work and hear the story behind a lot of it. As you all heard, he's on all the medias. He's got work for sale. He's got murals you can go visit. We have a few more questions in the chat that we'll put together and send to you, Hamilton.
Okay.
We're just past 10, so I want to honor people's time if they've got to roll out and get to other meetings. But again, thank you so much. Thank you to Joey Tran for being our videographer today. If anyone at home is taking images of your space or your experience this morning, we'd love for you to send those in to richmond@creativemornings.com. And we'll put that in the chat as well. If you send us pictures, we'll put you in a drawing. We've got t-shirts, we've got Ham Glass stickers that we'll be sending out to people. So send us your photos, we'll send you a sticker. And thank you so much for joining us on your Friday. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.